Hi, N4HNH here. This video is a bit of a, I'll call it an addendum to the previous video where we got into the use of IPO, attenuation, RF gain, and AGC. The reason I'm shooting this video is I had a few questions, comments, and I want to clarify something because it is a bit confusing, or it can be. So look up here at the screen. Hopefully you can see my mouse moving. Yaesu radios tend to show you the order of the receive chain. Okay, so in other words, imagine out here to the left of attenuation is your antenna. The signal comes in, you've got attenuation, and then you've got IPO. In between attenuation and IPO is where you're going to find your bandpass filters. They don't show that here because, well, they just are automatically switched in and out according to your band changes. IPO, Intercept Point Optimization, you've heard me say this many times, that is Yaesu speak, if you will. That means turn off your preamps. Okay, so this particular radio here, the FTdx10, it has amp 1 and amp 2, see? And the two of these amps together, they're cascaded, if you know what I mean. In other words, if you select amp 2, you're adding to amp 1. You see, I'm on 7 megahertz. On 7 megahertz, I really don't need any RF amplification, so I would select IPO. Now, you're thinking, and it would make sense to think this way, well, Doug, you say attack the noise from the front end. I've said that in many videos. Well, the attenuator comes before IPO, and that is true. That's how it is in the signal chain. But this is what I wanted to clear up for you. Intercept point optimization, which you could say it completely bypasses the amps, but what it really is there is a small gain, very low gain amplifier there that is, they call it intercept point optimization. What it is it's a compromise between sensitivity and signal to noise ratio. It's going to focus more, I should say, lean toward signal to noise ratio. So it's very little amplification, hence the name Intercept Point Optimization. On 7 megahertz and below, I pretty much keep that on all the time. I might even keep it on 14 megahertz. When you get up to 18 megahertz or higher, then you might want to consider amp 1, and in fact when you get up to 21 megahertz, but especially 28 megahertz, then you may even need amp 2, because up at those frequencies you're not getting as much of the atmospheric noise as it's often referred to. But down here on the lower bands, definitely IPO. Now, why not turn on the attenuation before you turn IPO? Because see, this is the confusing part. The way the radio is laid out, you would think, okay, attack my noise from the front end. So I want to, first of all, I'll attenuate. Now, what I mean by that is you want to get your noise floor down, right? So let me put it back to amp 1. Look at the noise floor. Okay, I could attenuate first. I could do 6. And it doesn't exactly bring the noise floor all the way down. I could do 12. So 12 decibels of attenuation. And that's certainly okay. But here's the advantage of leaving that off and trying IPO first. IPO also attenuates, if you think about it, okay? It's a lot less gain. It's minuscule. Very, very little gain. It's going to be optimized for signal to noise ratio. And the reason I would suggest IPO first is because IPO not only is attenuating, let me turn it down a little bit, IPO is also improving something that is called the cross-modulation characteristic of the receiver. Okay, cross-modulation is, for example, a strong signal up or down the band from where you're trying to receive, and you can get some interference from that strong signal. Of course, the better the receiver, the less interference you'll get from that type of a signal. This radio here, for example, is arguably number 2 in the world right now for something called reciprocal mixing dynamic range, RMDR. Now, if you look at Rob Sherwood's list, it's going to show a Flex 6700 in the number 2 position. But if you read those little footnotes, if you look down at the footnotes, you'll find out that that was one radio that he tested. When he tested later production models, 99 decibels was their RMDR rating. Well, just to put that in perspective for you, that puts that radio down even below like 13. I think puts it down probably in the 14, 15 slot. For example, the FTdx 5000 MP that you've seen me use a lot on this channel. That radio, when it was new, when it came out, Rob Sherwood tested one of the early models in 2010, and it came in at 101 decibels for RMDR. So reciprocal mixing dynamic range. I wish Mr. Sherwood would have tested the later versions of the FTdx 5000. The FTdx 5000 MP version, like I have. I purchased it in 2019. I believe if he would have tested a later version of that radio, it might have even placed higher in his list. Anything above 100 is really good. This radio, the FTdx10, comes in at 107 decibels for reciprocal mixing dynamic range. And so really it's bested only by its big brother, the FTdx10 D or MP version, the MP being the 200 watt model. So it's already good, but what I'm getting back to the discussion at hand, the intercept point optimization not only is providing some attenuation, it's also improving the radio's ability to combat something called cross-modulation. And so, you know, again, that's interference from a strong signal up or down the band. So that's why, even though the receiver order is as shown, it's attenuation first. Like I said, then bandpass filters, then IPO or amplifiers, then your roofing filter, which in this radio is a physical crystal roofing filter. In fact, it has 4. That one is optional. You've seen the video where I installed the 300 hertz roofing filter for CW. And then, of course, it's got the 500 to 3K and the 12K are already installed in the radio. So these are physical roofing filters, if you some people would say mechanical, so that you're not relying completely on DSP to narrow your width. So, for example, what I mean by DSP, you see this. This is a DSP width. So, for example, right now I'm on the 3000, you'll see it gray out there. I'm on the 3000 hertz physical filter. So when I start rotating this, you'll see it's going to be default at 3000. Now I'm digitally narrowing it even more. But in other words, what's happening is I've got a 3000 hertz physical crystal filter assisting the digital signal processing. It's ahead of it, and of course narrowing down before this digital signal processor has to deal with it, which means the digital signal processor doesn't have to work as hard. So this radio, in the spirit of being a hybrid, not only does it have crystal roofing filters ahead of the DSP, of course it also, as you may know, is a hybrid because it actually has a dual conversion super heterodyne receiver. So it's got that in conjunction with the SDR stage, and of course then finally the digital signal processing stage. So it's got a lot going for it, which is what puts it at 107 decibels for reciprocal mixing dynamic range. So anyway, again, let me recap. The order is showing the receiver in the order of the stages. And I should, clarify, stages you have control over, like the bandpass filters that are right here between attenuation and IPO. The radio is switching those in and out. When you change bands, you may hear little relays in there clicking. That's what's going on. Is it selecting the bandpass filter? So like here on 7 megahertz, it's selecting a bandpass filter that is at least narrowing the receiver down to the 40 meter band. Okay, and then it goes to IPO or not. And, because it could be amplifier 1 or 2, and then it goes to the roofing filter. So that is the stage of the receiver, but the order that you want to use to attack noise, to minimize noise, is IPO first, then if you need it, go to attenuation. So again, why? Because the IPO not only is attenuating, it's also improving what's called the cross-modulation characteristics of the receiver. So it gives it a little bit of an edge when fighting against a strong signal from up or down the band. Now, one other thing I'll show you, I'm going to change bands here, and I will go down to 1.8 megahertz, which is going to be a rather noisy band normally. Now, I'm not on an antenna right now that's even tuned for it. I'm on an 80 meter dipole, but let's just see what happens when I have amp 1 and no attenuation. So you see there's my noise level, and it's just atmospherics, okay? And then some locally generated noise. So first thing I'm going to do on this band is go to IPO. Absolutely want some attenuation, but at the same time, I want to improve the cross-modulation characteristics of the radio. All right, so that took care of two things all in one button, if you think about it. Now, that's dropped it to near zero, really, but if let's just face it, if I'm listening on 160, those stations are strong, which, by the way, that's even more of an argument for using IPO, because strong signals up and down this band are going to be really strong. So the signals that are on this band are going to be so strong, I really don't even need to hear any grind. So I could try 6 dB, 12 dB. That's not bad because I don't even have digital noise reduction kicked in. Digital noise reduction, and I'm only using algorithm 1. That's the least aggressive. That's absolutely usable right there. But, you know, let's say you weren't going to use digital noise reduction. You could go to 18 dB and roll the RF gain back a little bit. So again, the lower in frequency that you go, definitely want to use IPO. Like I said, 7 megahertz and below, it's a given for me. And then the lower in frequency you go, you may want to kick in more attenuation. So maybe on the 7 megahertz band, IPO and, whoops, don't want that. On the 7 megahertz band, IPO and 6 dB of attenuation may be enough. And then on 80 meters, IPO and 12 dB should be enough. That's in fact how I do it, by the way. And then on this band, on 160 meters, I will actually usually kick in the full 18 dB, because the guys I listen to on this band are easily hitting 40 and even 50 dB over 9. So I could literally, even after all that attenuation, I could still roll it back probably to 5. Now that's not really 5 S units, you realize, because of all the attenuation we've got kicked in there. But so it's just relative, the S meter. You know, I've shot videos all about how S meters are relative, not exactly accurate. But there you go. That's the way I would address it. So 80 meters, or let me start over. So 160 meters, 18 dB, and intercept point optimization. So on the 80 meter band, here I am on the AM section. There we go. So 80 meter band, you see I have 12 dB and IPO. That's where I leave it. And then back to 40 meters, IPO, and let me get to the 40 meter antenna. So you see, I don't really need to hear all that. I've got intercept point optimization already enabled, so how about 6 dB of attenuation as well? Roll the RF gain back a little bit. Digital noise reduction, got it at algorithm 3. So there you go. Just wanted to clear up the confusion about that. From, I guess, detected that it didn't make sense to some of you who watched that previous video. Just do not get caught up in the fact that, you know, this is laid out according to the stages of the receiver. Always, before you would attenuate, always use IPO first. Again, why? It's a twofer. It gives you attenuation and improves the cross-modulation characteristics of the receiver. Okay, hey, I hope you found this video helpful and informative. Thank you, Patreons, for helping me keep this channel going. I really do much appreciate you. And again, I want to read out my newest Patreons. Thank you, Andrew, Dennis, Daniel, Scott, William, Harold, and Alex. Thank you so much for your support. And hopefully we will continue to be able to do this and help, well, not only old dogs like me, I still learn, but also help those who may be new to the hobby, and your contributions certainly are helping do that. And if anyone else would like to become a Patreon supporter and help us in this mission, go to www.patreon.com/N4HNH. Patreon.com/N4HNH. And again, like I say always, please like and subscribe. We only get about 8 or 9% likes, and it really helps out a lot with the search algorithm on YouTube, so I'm told, if we have more likes to the videos. I get it. Some of you may be watching on a television set like I do sometimes, and there's no option for like. But, you know, what I try to do is I'll bring it up on my phone real quick and go to that video and punch the like button just so I can help out the YouTuber whose video I found to be helpful. So if you would, please like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. That helps as well. And if you do subscribe, be sure to click the bell and you will be notified when I upload the next video. Okay, hey, thanks again for watching, and 73 from N4HNH.